My name is Elena Dawson. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Charleston with my 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. A week ago, my life changed forever. It was a Tuesday, sunny, warm, the kind of morning that tricks you into believing nothing bad could ever happen. Michael, my husband, was making pancakes shaped like dolphins for Sophie, while I packed her school lunch with a post-it note that said, "You're going to be amazing today." Michael kissed us both on the forehead before heading out. "Art show tonight. Don't let me forget," he said, grabbing his travel mug and keys. His last words to me? "Real maple syrup, Elena, not the cheap stuff. You know better." We smiled. I watched him pull out of the driveway. It was the last time I ever saw him alive. At 11:12 a.m., I got the call from Amanda, his assistant. "Elena, it's Michael. He collapsed in the middle of a client meeting. The ambulance is here. They're taking him to Charleston General." Her voice was trembling. I dropped my mug. The crash felt distant, like I was underwater. I whispered prayers the entire drive, speeding through red lights, barely seeing the road. But I was too late. Michael was pronounced dead at 11:38 a.m. Massive heart attack. No warning, no second chances. The attending doctor told me he likely felt very little. He just went down. But that was no comfort. I walked into the room expecting to see him smile, make some dumb joke about scaring everyone. Instead, he was still. Too still. His face was peaceful, like he was napping on the couch. But the stillness, the absence of life, was unbearable. I stood there for a long time, one hand on his shoulder, the other pressed against my stomach as if to stop myself from crumbling. Eventually, I had to call someone. I needed to hear a familiar voice. So I called my parents. My mom answered after the 5th ring. I could hear laughter and clinking glasses in the background. "Elena, sweetie, can I call you back? We're at Eric and Marissa's anniversary brunch. Can it wait until tomorrow?" "Mom." I could barely breathe. "Michael's gone. He had a heart attack at work. He's dead." There was a pause. Then she sighed, like I had just told her the catering was late. "Oh, honey, are you sure? Maybe it's a mistake." "I saw him," I whispered. "There's no mistake." "Well, that's just awful. But we're in the middle of a celebration and there are guests here. Can you manage tonight? We'll stop by tomorrow morning." She hung up before I could respond. My knees buckled. That night, Sophie and I sat on the couch, her curled into my lap, both of us wrapped in one of Michael's hoodies that still smelled like him. Cedarwood, leather, faint traces of his cologne. She didn't know yet. I hadn't figured out how to tell her. How do you explain death to a 7-year-old? How do you find the words to say, "Your daddy isn't coming back"? I waited until the next afternoon. Sophie burst into the car after school, her face lit with excitement. "Daddy promised to come to my art show. He said he'd bring flowers." I pulled the car over because I couldn't drive with the weight in my chest. I turned to face her. "Sweetheart, something very sad happened." Her smile vanished. She stared at me, eyes wide. "Daddy got very sick at work," I said slowly. "His heart stopped working. The doctors tried, but they couldn't fix it. Daddy died yesterday." Silence. Then, the sound that came from her was not a scream or a cry. It was a wail. Deep. Primal. Heart-shattering. She threw herself into my arms, fists pounding my chest as she sobbed. "I want Daddy. Please, I want him back." I held her. I cried with her. We stayed parked there until the sun began to set, and the sky turned from blue to orange to darkness. That night, she slept in our bed, clinging to one of Michael's old t-shirts like it was a lifeline. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bathroom floor, shaking, sobbing silently behind a closed door, so she wouldn't hear. I called my parents again. This time my father answered. Elena, what's going on now? She knows. I told Sophie. She cried herself to sleep. There was silence. Then he asked, was Michael's life insurance policy up to date? Not. Do you need anything? Not. Should we come over? But. Was the money handled? I don't remember what I said. I just remember feeling cold. Frozen in place. Like I was screaming into a void where no one heard me. The next few days passed in a blur, making arrangements, signing papers, choosing a casket, trying to function. My in-laws, Diana and Mark, arrived the next morning. They took care of everything. Diana cleaned the house. Mark called the funeral home. Michael's brother, Daniel, flew in from Seattle and took Sophie out for ice cream just to give me an hour of peace. My own parents? One text. When's the service? Do you want us to wear black, or is it more of a celebration of life thing? No offers to help. No checking in. Just the bare minimum. Even that felt too much to hope for. Saturday came, Michael's funeral. Sophie wore a sky blue dress because Daddy said I looked like a superhero in blue. I braided her hair the way he always did before school plays. My hands trembled the whole time. Michael's colleagues filled the chapel, all wearing dark suits and grief on their faces. Some of them were crying openly. They told Sophie stories about her father, how he brought donuts to every team meeting, how he once skipped a corporate dinner to attend her science fair. We waited for my parents. They texted 20 minutes before the service. Traffic. Be there soon. They arrived during the opening hymn, making a quiet commotion as they slid into the front row I had reserved for family. My mom gave me a brief hug. Her perfume was overpowering. The traffic was horrible, and I couldn't find a dress on short notice. Short notice? We buried Michael that afternoon. And yet, I had no idea the real betrayal had only just begun. Michael and I met our sophomore year at the University of Georgia. I was struggling in statistics too, and he was the calm, confident teaching assistant who stayed after class to walk me through standard deviations and confidence intervals with the patience of a saint. I remember the way his voice softened when I got frustrated, how his fingers tapped nervously on the desk when he was thinking. That's what I first fell for, his kindness. We started dating over finals week and never really stopped. Michael proposed the day we graduated. He slipped the ring into a bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite, and asked if I was ready to build a life together. I said yes before he could even finish the question. We were young, 23, full of dreams, ignoring everyone who told us to wait a few years or see the world first. We wanted to build the world together. Michael got an MBA while I launched my design studio. He joined a boutique financial firm in Charleston and worked his way up quickly. Clients loved him. He was that rare mix of sharp mind and soft heart. He made people feel safe about money, which is no small thing. After 5 years, we decided to try for a baby. We assumed it would be easy. It wasn't. 3 years, 2 miscarriages, a failed round of IVF. We were emotionally drained, physically exhausted, financially stretched thin. Just when we began considering adoption, I got pregnant. Naturally, miraculously. The pregnancy was rough. Preterm labor scares, nausea that never let up, and 2 full months on bed rest. Michael worked from home during those weeks, propping up pillows around me like a nesting bird. He made fresh fruit smoothies, rubbed my legs when they cramped, and read every book on parenting he could find. He talked to Sophie through my belly every night, promising her pancake sundaes and bedtime stories. When she was born, he wept openly in the delivery room. He was that kind of father, the good kind. He coached her t-ball team even though he barely understood the rules. He practiced silly dance routines with her for the school talent show. He left sticky notes in her lunchbox with math jokes and doodles. Every dentist appointment, every recital. He never missed a thing. He color-coded our family calendar with pastel highlighters. Pink for Sophie, blue for me, green for himself. I should have seen the warning signs. He brushed off occasional chest tightness as just stress. Shortness of breath? Out of shape. The doctor said his blood pressure was a little high but manageable. Take a baby aspirin, cut back on salt, sleep more. It didn't seem urgent. And now he was gone. The days following the funeral were a blur. Friends came in waves, some with casseroles, others with tears. A few with quiet offers to help handle bills or pick Sophie up from school. My phone vibrated non-stop with sympathy messages. Michael had been loved deeply. His absence was felt everywhere. My parents? Silent. They left immediately after the service. No hug. No offer to help clean up. No mention of Sophie. It was Michael's parents, Diana and Mark, who stepped in. Diana helped Sophie change into pajamas and held her hand until she drifted to sleep. Mark did the dishes and made tea for everyone. Michael's brother Daniel stayed with us that whole week. They didn't ask what we needed. They knew. 4 days after the funeral, I received one brief text from my mother. "Hope you're managing okay, we'll check in soon." They never did. Instead, my grief became solitary. Every night, Sophie would ask if Daddy was still watching over us. I told her yes. Every night, she fell asleep clutching his pillow. I'd lie next to her in the silence, staring at the ceiling, unsure how I would ever move forward. Then one morning, the doorbell rang. It was 10:30. Sophie was at school. I opened the door and found both of my parents standing there, dressed casually as if they'd dropped by for brunch. "Thought we'd check in," my mom said, walking right past me into the living room. "Is Sophie at school? Good. We can talk openly." Something about the way she said it made the hairs on my arms rise. I made coffee out of habit, not warmth, and brought it in on a tray like I was still the polite daughter hosting holiday visits. We made small talk, weather, Sophie's art project, how my brother Eric was launching a new business. Then my father set down his cup and leaned forward. "Elena, we wanted to talk about your situation." "My what?" "Your financial situation, now that Michael's gone." I froze. My mother chimed in, her tone soft but rehearsed. "We're getting older. Retirement has been harder than expected, and with health insurance premiums rising, well, we thought maybe you could help out." It took me a second to grasp what they were saying. They were asking for money. From the life insurance. The money Michael left to secure our future. Sophie's future. "How much are you thinking?" I asked, my voice like ice. "Well," my father said, clearly having rehearsed this, 50% of the payout would be fair. It would secure our retirement and still leave plenty for you and Sophie. It's not about greed, it's about family supporting family. 50%. Half. Half of the money my husband left after dropping dead at 36. My chest burned. "You didn't even show up for the funeral until the last second. You didn't hold my daughter when she cried herself to sleep. And now you want money?" "Elena," my father said sternly, "we raised you. We supported you through college, paid for your wedding. We've made sacrifices." I stood, too angry to speak. My mother added, "We're not asking for all of it, just our fair share." "My fair share was buried 4 days ago," I said quietly. "Get out." "Elena," I said, "get out, and don't you dare mention my husband's name again." They left, offended. No apology, no shame. And that night, while picking Sophie up from school, she looked at me with her big brown eyes and asked, "Why were Grandma and Grandpa here today?" I hesitated. "They came to talk to me about some grown-up things." She frowned. "Was it about the money?" My heart stopped. "How did you—" "I heard Grandpa at the funeral. He told Uncle James we'd be getting lots of money since Daddy died." Tears stung my eyes. Sophie looked down at her shoes and whispered, I'd give all the money in the world just to have Daddy back. I held her hand, pulled her close. So would I, baby. So would I. What I didn't know was that my parents weren't done. They were only getting started. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing from my parents. No calls, no texts, just silence. Like their last visit hadn't ended with them demanding half of the life insurance payout my husband left for our daughter's future. Meanwhile, I was trying to survive. Grief has a strange rhythm. It doesn't crash all at once. It leaks into everything. The quiet moments, the school pickups, the routine that now felt foreign. Sophie was adjusting, slowly. Her teachers had been sending kind notes about her drawings in class. Most of them were of her and Michael sitting under a big tree eating pancakes. I kept them all in a folder, but even in the silence, I knew my parents hadn't let go of their request. And sure enough, on a Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. It was my father. Elena, we need to have a serious conversation about the future, yours and Sophie's and ours. Come to the house Sunday afternoon. This concerns the whole family. Bring Sophie. Not, can we talk? Not, how are you holding up? Just a command. At first, I wasn't going to go. But then Sophie surprised me. That evening, she stood in the kitchen, clutching a manila envelope. I need to come with you on Sunday. You don't have to, sweetheart. It's going to be uncomfortable, and they might say things that... I want to. She interrupted, calm and firm. I have something to give them. Something for me and Daddy. I hesitated, then nodded. I had learned to trust Sophie's instincts. In the weeks since Michael died, she had shown a depth of empathy and clarity that sometimes took my breath away. On Saturday night, after she went to bed, I found myself sitting at Michael's desk. I opened the bottom drawer, the one he always kept locked. Inside was a small safe box with our important documents. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. I flipped through folders, mortgage papers, Sophie's birth certificate, our marriage license. Then I found a sealed envelope with my name in his handwriting. It was dated 3 months before his death. With trembling hands, I opened it. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I didn't tell you how serious the doctor's warnings were because I didn't want to worry you, but I've updated all our paperwork. The life insurance, retirement accounts, and Sophie's trust are secure. Everything goes to you and her. No one else. I also need you to know this. Your father approached me twice about investing in one of his projects. They weren't real investments. They were just attempts to get money. I said no each time, politely. But he made it clear he thought my death might create an opportunity for him. Don't let that happen, Elena. Protect Sophie. That money is for her future, not to bail out people who never showed up when it counted. You were always the strong one, even when you didn't feel like it. I love you. Take care of our girl, and don't let anyone guilt you into forgetting what's right. I was sobbing by the end. Michael had known, and he had protected us, even from beyond the grave. I called our attorney, Janet, the next morning and read her the letter. She confirmed that everything Michael wrote matched the legal documents she had on file. Sophie's trust was airtight. I was the sole beneficiary. There was no legal claim anyone else could make. Even if they try to contest, I asked, they won't get far. Your father has no standing. But if you want to be safe, bring the letter. I printed a copy and slid it into my purse. At 1:30, Sophie and I got into the car. You sure you want to do this? I asked again. She nodded, clutching her manila envelope. I'm ready. We pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. There were extra cars parked on the curb, my aunts and uncles. I hadn't been warned about that. They were staging an ambush. I squeezed Sophie's hand. She squeezed back. My mother answered the door, dressed like she was going to church. Her voice was syrupy sweet. Elena, Sophie, come in. Everyone's in the living room. The same living room where I had opened Christmas presents, hosted birthday parties, cried after high school breakups. It didn't feel like home anymore. My father was seated in his recliner like a judge presiding over a court. Sophia, my older sister, was perched on the couch's arm, scrolling through her phone. Around the room, Uncle James, Aunt Rita, Cousin Derek, even my father's brother Gary and his wife. A full audience. "Thank you for coming," my father said solemnly. "We have some important matters to discuss." "I'll stand," I replied, keeping Sophie close. Before anyone could speak, I added, "And anything you have to say, you can say in front of Sophie. This concerns her future too." My mother looked uneasy. "Elena, really, this isn't appropriate for a child." "If it's not appropriate for her to hear," I said, "then maybe it's not appropriate for you to ask." A pause. Then my father cleared his throat. "We've been reviewing our family's financial structure. Your mother and I have always supported you and your sister. College tuition, the down payment on your first home." He handed me a document. It was a proposal, a literal breakdown of how my husband's life insurance money should be divided: 50% to my parents, 15% to Sophia. The rest? For Sophie and me. "You want 65% of my husband's life insurance?" I said aloud, stunned. "It's only fair," Sophia chimed in. "Mom and Dad did everything for you." "And this," my father added, "would also help Sophia launch her art gallery. It would be a wonderful legacy for Michael." Michael, the man they barely mentioned until there was money on the table. "Legacy?" I snapped. "You couldn't be bothered to leave a brunch when he died. You came late to his funeral. And now you want to spend his legacy on pastel wallpaper and gallery lighting?" Sophia's face flushed. My father stood, angry now. "We raised you. We deserve something. That money is family money now." "No," I said. "It's Michael's. And it's Sophie's." I was about to pull out Michael's letter when Sophie stepped forward. "I have something to say," she said clearly. My mother gave a weak smile. "Sweetie, the adults?" "This is for you," Sophie interrupted, handing her grandfather the envelope. He opened it slowly. Inside was a drawing, but not just any drawing. It looked like an invoice. At the top, in careful handwriting, it said, "Bill for real love and support. Being there when Daddy died, $0. Not provided. Helping Mommy when she was sad, $0. Not provided. Hugging me when I cried, $0. Not provided. Being real grandparents, priceless, but not earned. Total due, a $0. Sophie looked up at them, calm and steady. "You came because you wanted Daddy's money, but this is what you actually gave us." The silence was deafening. Sophia looked away. My mother began to cry. My father just stood there, blinking at the paper like it had punched him in the face. I took Sophie's hand. "We're done here," I said. "Don't contact us unless you're ready to apologize and show real change." And then we walked out. Not as victims, but as a mother and daughter, united, unbroken, and finally free. The moment Sophie and I walked out of my parents' living room, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't relief, not yet, but it was something close. Clarity, maybe, or resolve. My grief was still heavy, but for the first time since Michael died, I didn't feel powerless. Sophie held my hand tightly as we walked to the car. She didn't say anything at first, neither did I. We were both too overwhelmed. It wasn't until we pulled into our driveway that she spoke. "Do you think they read it?" she asked, her voice small. I glanced over at her. "Your invoice?" I asked gently. She nodded. "I think they read every word, baby," I said. "And I think it hit harder than anything I could have said." She looked down at her hands. "Daddy would have liked it, right?" I reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "He would have loved it. He would have been proud of how brave you were. That night, I put Sophie to bed with her favorite story, The Paper Kingdom, and sat at Michael's desk afterward, staring at the letter he'd written. I kept reading and rereading one paragraph in particular. Your father has approached me twice about investment opportunities that were thinly veiled requests for money. I declined politely, but he seemed to think my death would create an opportunity. Don't let that happen. It still made me sick to think about. Michael had known what they were capable of. He hadn't wanted to tell me, not out of secrecy, but to protect me, to spare me, and even in death, he was still protecting us. The next morning, I scanned the letter and sent it to Janet, our attorney. I wanted it on file, just in case. She responded within minutes. This letter won't be legally necessary, but it helps clarify Michael's intent. More importantly, you should know the trust for Sophie is watertight. Your parents have no legal path to contest anything. I felt a small, brief wave of reassurance, but Janet wasn't done. That said, I'd recommend documenting any future communication with them, just in case they escalate. I've seen situations like this turn messy fast. That same day, the messages started again. Voicemails from my father. This isn't how family handles things, Elena. You're being emotional. We deserve a seat at the table. Texts from my mother. We raised you better than this. Family comes first. Even Sophia messaged me. You've always been so selfish. But this is a new low. Mom and Dad deserve better. The guilt tripping didn't surprise me. It infuriated me. They had lost the narrative, and they were scrambling to reclaim it. But I was done being the quiet daughter. I was done being managed. That Friday, I met Janet in person and brought the letter with me. I need to know exactly where I stand, I said, because I don't trust them not to try something. Janet pulled up the files and reviewed everything again. Michael made you sole beneficiary. Sophie's education trust is legally shielded from any outside claims. If your parents attempt to interfere, we can issue a cease and desist letter. If they try to contact you at work or at Sophie's school, we document everything. It was the assurance I needed. Still, part of me was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it did. Sunday morning, I got a call from Sophie's elementary school principal. Hi, Ms. Dawson. I just wanted to let you know that your mother showed up at dismissal on Friday asking to see Sophie. She's not on the approved pickup list, so we asked her to leave. But we thought you should know. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. My mother, after being told not to contact us, had gone to Sophie's school. Alone. Uninvited. This wasn't just manipulative anymore. It was invasive. I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't even call first. I marched up the front porch and rang the doorbell. My father answered, surprised to see me. Elena, don't ever go near Sophie's school again, I snapped. You're not on the list. You don't get to insert yourself whenever it suits you. My mother appeared behind him. We just wanted to talk, to see her. You had your chance. You blew it. Now stay away. We're your parents, my father growled. You can't just cut us off. I'm not cutting you off, I said coldly. I'm protecting my daughter. If you want to rebuild anything, it starts with boundaries and apologies, not ambushes, not bribes, and not entitlement. They didn't respond. I left without waiting for them to try. That night, after Sophie was asleep, I sat on the couch with Michael's letter in my hands, reading it again and again. His words were now my armor. Protect Sophie. That money is for her future, not to bail out people who never showed up. On Tuesday morning, I received a certified letter in the mail from my father's law firm. The envelope was heavy, embossed with a seal like it was a royal decree. Inside was a single-typed page signed by him. If you do not agree to a reasonable distribution of the life insurance proceeds within 14 days, We will be forced to reevaluate our relationship with you and Sophie. That line, reevaluate our relationship, read like a threat. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I scanned the letter, emailed it to Janet, and labeled the physical copy with a sticky note. Evidence, June. I didn't respond. Let them stew. The following Sunday, I sat down with Sophie at breakfast. "Sweetheart," I said, "I think it's time we start making our own traditions." She looked up from her cereal. "Like what?" "Like a day just for us. To remember Daddy. To do something he would have loved." "Like Pancake Day?" I smiled. "Exactly like Pancake Day." We made a plan. First Sundays of the month. Pancake art, music, silly stories. Nothing formal, just memories. We weren't going to let them take Michael's legacy and turn it into a transaction. We were going to live it, preserve it, pass it on the right way. That afternoon, as we sorted through more of Michael's keepsakes, Sophie pulled out one of his neckties. "I think we should save this," she said, "for when I'm big. Maybe I'll wear it on my first job interview." My eyes welled up. That's a perfect idea. We were still grieving, still figuring it all out, but we were doing it together. No manipulations, no demands, just love. And that was more than enough. The summer heat hung heavy in Charleston. Cicadas buzzed like static in the trees, and the sky threatened rain. But inside our house, everything felt still, like a long breath held too long. A week had passed since my father's threatening letter. I hadn't replied. I hadn't called. I hadn't even spoken to anyone in my extended family, most of whom had been silent since the confrontation. Except for Aunt Marianne. She called one evening out of the blue. "I want you to know," she said gently, "not all of us agree with how your parents handled things. When they invited us to that meeting, they said it was about creating a memorial fund for Michael. We didn't realize it was about money. I'm sorry for being there. I didn't speak up, and I should have." Her voice cracked. I believed her, and hearing that made the silence from everyone else feel even colder. Michael's brother, Daniel, extended his stay in Charleston. He moved into our guest room and took over school pickups so I could focus on handling the estate paperwork and catching my breath. Sophie lit up when he was around. He told her stories about Michael from their childhood, and they started a new Sunday tradition: chess and waffles. One morning, after Sophie went to school, I found her old sketch pad tucked under the sofa cushion. Flipping through the pages, I saw a drawing she had started. A portrait of Michael holding a giant umbrella over her while it rained hearts. My heart ached with both pride and sorrow. She was working through the grief in her own way, quietly, bravely. Then came another message from my parents. This time, not a letter, not a visit, but a phone call to my workplace. I was in the middle of a budget review when my office phone buzzed. "Elena," said the receptionist, "there's a Mr. Dawson on the line. He says he's your father." My blood went cold. I picked up. "What do you want?" I asked. "Elena, don't hang up. We want to resolve this civilly." "There's nothing to resolve. Stop contacting me at work. Next time, I'll report it as harassment." He started to speak again, but I ended the call. That afternoon, Janet helped me draft and send a formal cease and desist notice. It was the first time I'd ever had to take legal action against my own parents, and it made me feel hollow, but necessary. The following weekend, a new envelope arrived at the house. Hand-delivered. My father's handwriting on the front. I didn't open it. Instead, I handed it to Daniel. "Can you file this with Janet?" He nodded. Already one step ahead. That Sunday, Sophie and I hosted our first memory brunch. Daniel helped us make blueberry pancakes. Sophie wore Michael's old Georgia Tech hoodie as a dress, her sleeves dragging on the floor. We sat on the porch with a photo album and took turns telling our favorite daddy stories. "I remember," Sophie said, when he let me paint his toenails pink, and then he forgot and wore sandals to the grocery store. Daniel laughed so hard he spilled syrup on the railing. He called me after that and said, "I've never felt so judged in the frozen food aisle." I smiled through tears. He always said Sophie had better fashion instincts. It was the first day in a long time that laughter didn't feel like betrayal, but peace never lasted long. A week later, my mother showed up at Sophie's school again. This time, she didn't even try to be discreet. She brought cookies and tried to hand them to Sophie at the front gate. The school called me immediately. And this time, I didn't just warn her. I filed a restraining notice through Janet's office barring unauthorized contact with Sophie on school grounds. That night, Sophie sat at the kitchen table, coloring quietly. I watched her for a long time before finally asking, "How are you feeling about all this, sweetheart?" She looked up and said, "I don't understand why Grandma and Grandpa only want to see us when there's something to get." I walked over and pulled her into my lap. "Me neither. But that's not your fault." She hesitated, then said, "Can I write them something else? Not for money this time. Just something about Daddy?" "Of course," I said, surprised. She pulled out her sketch pad and disappeared into her room for an hour. When she came back, she handed me a drawing of a tree with 3 people underneath: Michael, her, and me. Above their heads were words: "Love doesn't take. Love gives." "I want them to see what real love looks like," she said. I hugged her tightly. "You're everything your dad wanted you to be." That Wednesday, my phone buzzed with another message from my father. "We're calling a final family meeting, Sunday, 2 p.m. Your mother and I would like to resolve this with dignity. Bring Sophie." I didn't respond, but I knew I was going. Not for them, but to make it clear, once and for all, that we were done being manipulated. That Sunday, Sophie wore the blue dress Michael had bought her for her birthday. She braided her hair the way he used to. As we drove, she held a new envelope in her lap. "Want to tell me what's inside?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Not yet. You'll see." When we arrived, I saw the same lineup of cars. My parents, Sophia, my uncle and aunt. Everyone was there. I took a deep breath and squeezed Sophie's hand. We walked in together. The same living room. The same setup. My father cleared his throat. "We're glad you came. We've been thinking, and we wanted to present a new proposal. Less aggressive. More family-centered." He passed me another document. I didn't even read it. Instead, I pulled Michael's letter from my bag and laid it gently on the table. "Before we go further," I said calmly, "you should read this." My father picked it up, scanned it. His face tightened. "You knew," I said, my voice even. "You approached Michael before, and he said no. Because he saw through you. Because he was protecting us." The room fell silent. Then Sophie stepped forward and handed him her new envelope. He opened it. Inside was the drawing of the tree and the words, "Love doesn't take, love gives." "This is what Daddy believed," Sophie said. "And I do too." The room went still. Sophia looked away. My mother's chin trembled. I stood, took Sophie's hand. "We're done here," I said. "Don't contact us again unless it's to apologize and accept that Michael's legacy is not for sale." And then we left. The rain had started to fall, but for the first time in months, I felt clean. 2 weeks after the second family meeting, the phone went quiet. No more messages from my parents, no voicemails, no envelopes, no surprise visits to Sophie's school. Just silence. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was space. And space was a start. Michael had been gone for nearly 4 months, and every room in our house still carried echoes of him. His slippers by the bed, his favorite mug in the cabinet. The playlist he made for Sophie's bedtime still queued up on my phone. But over time, Those echoes began to feel like warmth rather than wounds. Daniel, bless him, stayed for another month. He taught Sophie chess, picked her up from school, and helped me sort through Michael's remaining files. One night, while digging through the back of our closet, he found an old camcorder labeled "For Later, Play Only If I'm Gone." We sat on the couch together, trembling, and watched it. Michael appeared on the screen, sitting in our backyard, the breeze in his hair, and that quiet smile on his face. If you're watching this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted, and that kills me. But if I'm gone, just know, I lived exactly the life I wanted, because I had you. Elena, don't let anyone take what we built and twist it into something cold. And Sophie? If you're watching this with Mommy, just know, being your dad was the best thing that ever happened to me. Be kind, be brave, and stand up when it counts. We both cried. Even Daniel. We played it again for Sophie the next day. She cried too. But afterward, she looked more sure of herself than I'd ever seen. He knew, she whispered. He really knew. In September, we held a second memorial for Michael on what would have been his 37th birthday. It was small and simple, just a few close friends, some family, and a bonfire in the backyard. Sophie made a scrapbook of daddy memories. She presented it in front of everyone, her voice steady and bright. Daddy used to say, being brave means doing the right thing even when it's scary. That's what we're doing. Michael's parents brought photo albums from his childhood. Daniel gave a quiet, beautiful speech. Our neighbor Ellen brought cupcakes with little pancake toppers on them, Michael's favorite breakfast. Notably absent, my parents. They hadn't been invited. But I had received another letter. This one was different. No threats, no demands, just handwriting. And humility. Dear Elena and Sophie, we're sorry. Not just for the money request, but for every moment we failed to show up when you needed us. We've begun seeing a family therapist. We're learning how much damage we've done, not just to you, but to ourselves. We miss you. And we hope, someday, we can prove to you that we can change. For the first time, I didn't feel angry reading their words. I felt tired, sad, but not furious. Still, I didn't respond right away. I put the letter aside, watched, waited. Time would tell if it meant anything. Meanwhile, we built a new life. Sophie thrived at school. She joined the art club and started painting again. Her latest piece of our family tree, with Michael as the roots, won second place at a local contest. I launched a small foundation in Michael's name, the Dawson Initiative, aimed at providing financial literacy programs for single mothers and underserved families. It was something Michael had always wanted to do, and doing it felt like bringing part of him back into the world. Daniel accepted a job at the local college. He moved into an apartment 10 minutes from us. Sophie calls him Uncle D now, and he's become a second father figure in the most natural, loving way. Then, in December, on Sophie's 8th birthday, I got a text from my mother. We left a small gift at the front porch. No expectations, just love. Sophie opened the package to find a book about astronomy, one of her favorite subjects, and a handwritten card. To Sophie, you are the brightest star in our sky. She read it quietly, then looked up at me. Can we see them again someday? I hesitated. Do you want to? She thought for a moment. Maybe, but only if they're kind now. That night, I texted my mother back. Thank you for the gift. We're not ready for a visit yet, but we appreciate the gesture. Boundaries. They were hard, but they were sacred. A few months later, Sophie and I went to the lake where Michael used to fish. We sat on the bench we dedicated in his name, feeding ducks and watching the ripples on the water. She turned to me suddenly and asked, "Do you think Daddy is proud of us?" I wrapped my arm around her. I know he is. We sat there a while longer, the wind brushing our cheeks. Then she said, "I think the best way to remember him is to be like him. Kind, but strong. Help people, but don't let them take advantage." I looked at her, this beautiful, brave, brilliant girl, and felt something inside me settle. Yes, baby, that's exactly it. This journey has been painful, lonely at times, but also empowering. I lost my husband, and I thought I lost my family. But what I really lost was the illusion of support. And once it was gone, I could finally build something real. The family we have now isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who protects, who listens, who loves without conditions. Michael left us more than a life insurance policy. He left us values. He left us strength. He left us the blueprint for the kind of life we deserve. And every day we honor him, not with money or monuments, but with the way we live, with kindness, with courage, with boundaries that protect love instead of suffocating it. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you most, please hear me when I say, you are not alone. You are not wrong for drawing a line, and you are absolutely allowed to protect what matters. Because sometimes, protecting your peace is the greatest act of love there is. Thank you for listening to our story. If it touched you, if it reminded you of your own journey, please subscribe, share your story in the comments, and know this: family is not just who you come from. It's who stands with you when everything falls apart.